Hey guys, welcome back to the vlog. This vlog will cover 2 sessions over at Capital Casino playing in the 1-3 game. Both days were a little bit rougher than I would like, but has some very interesting hands I think you will enjoy. So I've been playing for about 45 minutes in this 1-3 game. Got about $460 in my stack. Haven't really had too much to go either way. Here I pick up Ace King in the +1 position, open for a raise to 15. I get a call from the player on my left and the big blind player. Flop comes out pretty darn good for Ace King. It comes Ace King Deuce with 2 hearts. I do not have the Ace of Hearts. That means there's probably one available out there. I bet for $20. I get a quick call from the player on my left and also from the player in the big blind. Knowing that they both called makes me feel like one of them might have an Ace of Hearts with another heart. So when the turn card comes as the 5 of Hearts and the first player ends up checking, I'm just going to check this back for pot control. Unfortunately, the player behind me decides to bet $45. Now, he's quite capable of having a flush in this spot. I figure if the other player had a flush, he might want to go ahead and put in a little check raise here. But after some thought, he decides that he's just going to make the call. So I don't really like my hand that much, even though I got top 2 pair, but I definitely can't fold. He could be betting something other than a flush draw or a flush. So I make the call for additional 45, looking for a blank on the river, and it comes 5 of diamonds. Would rather have seen the ace or a king, of course, but that's not too bad. First player checks. I'm just going to check it. And to my surprise, the player behind me checks it back, and the player that was in the big blind rolls over the nut flush with the ace 6 of hearts. I decided to do a table change, maybe change my luck, and these stacks on this table is a little bit deeper. People are playing a little bit looser. Here I pick up king, queen offsuit. As you can see by the clock, it's been 2 hours. That means it's been about an hour since that last hand, and I haven't had hardly anything. So when I get king, queen offsuit from the +1, I'm going to raise the limper, and I do it to $20. Get called from the player on the button who has a very short stack, and both the big blind and the original limper put in the call. So we're going to go 4 ways to a flop with 81 in the center. And the flop comes out king 7-7, 2 diamonds. Not a bad flop for my particular hand. When the first 2 players checked me, I'm just going to check this for pot control. The first 2 players are more likely to have a 7 in their range than the player on the button who called a $20 open. Anyway, the player on the button decides to bet $60 of his $90 remaining. The other 2 players fold out, so I don't really have to worry about a 7. Most likely I have a better kicker than he does, and if he has a flush draw, there's no way I'm going to get him out, so might as well just stick the chips in here and see a run out. He puts in a very quick call, see the 6 of hearts and the jack of clubs. I show my king, queen, and he rolls over ace, king. Kind of a surprise. After that last hand, I added another $500 to my stack, so I'm in for $1,000. Well, I only had to wait a few minutes before I picked up a pair of queens from the hijack. Put in a raise to $20. I get 2 callers for the 20. Both coming out of the blinds. $63 in the pot. Flop comes out king, queen, 7 with 2 diamonds. Pretty good flop for queens. There is a draw heavy board. There's a king out there. I should be able to get some action from that. I bet out for $20. Both players muck their hands rather quickly, and I get no value whatsoever. Again, I go into a quiet period for a while until I pick up 5-4 suited on the button. There are a bunch of limpers and 5-4 suited. I'm going to put in a raise trying to steal these limps. Make it $30. I get 1 call from a player in early position and another call from the player to my right. So we go 3 ways to this flop with 85 in. Flop comes out 10-5-3 with 2 hearts. I do have second pair, some sort of straight draw. Both players checked me. Pretty good flop for 5-4. If you're going to raise with it and flop second pair and a straight draw, you better bet it. So I bet for $55. First player releases his cards. Second player decides that he is not ready to do that, and he decides to put in a call. Glad he wasn't raising, because I don't know what I would do if he put in a big raise. Turn card comes is a 5 of hearts. Now, my initial read on him that he would had a 10 and not a flush draw. So when he checks to me, I decided I'm going to have to bet this, and I'm not going to be a small bet either. I decided to go 175, almost a pot-sized bet. Really want to put pressure on his hands. If he has some sort of flush draw, I don't want him to get there cheaply. And of course, if he has a 10, he might get think it might be the best. So he takes for a very long time, but finally decides on putting in the fold on this one. And we take this pot down. And for the final hand of this first day, there's a $6 straddle on. I'm in the cutoff with ace king. Definitely going to be putting a raise. I make it 25. I get a quick call from the player in the small blind, and everyone else folds out. He's been fairly active. Hard to read, though. Flop comes out 8-7-5 with 2 spades. I do have the ace of spades. He checks it over to me, but I decided that probably doesn't hit my range too hard, so I decided I'm just going to check this one back and see a turn card. Turn card comes is a 6 of clubs. The board is getting very wet. Of course, any 9 or 5 or 4 makes a straight. He checks, I check it back. River card brings in a backdoor flush, and now my opponent bets out for $25. I figured he could be doing this with a lot of different hands, but I can beat all his aces as long as he doesn't make a straight or 2 pair with it, so I flick it in. He rolls over ace queen of diamonds, and we win a really small pot with ace king. Well, after playing for about 3.5 hours, I found myself basically dead even. I had a little bit of a win, but I gave that to the dealers and the floor people. I figured that maybe I'll come back the next day, get better action on my big cards, but here we go with aces. First hand I play. $6 straddle, open for a raise of 20, and everybody folds. So no action on my first hand. Well, I get another chance when there is a $6 straddle and a bazillion callers. I look down at queen jack from the small blind. Of course, I'm suited here. Decided to put in a big raise, just trying to take it down. I make it $40. Everybody folds except for one player in the cutoff. He is a non-believer. So just a heads up to the flop that comes 10-4-3 rainbow. There is one club, so I have 2 overcards, some weird straight draw, and a backdoor flush draw. I'm going to go ahead and c-bet this like I would with all my premium hands, whether I have ace king or pocket aces, kings, queens, jacks, tens. You get the drift. If he doesn't have a 10, I don't expect him to continue. He thinks long and hard, but finally decides on putting in a fold. So we get this one through, and I'm happy to win the pot. Well, after one early limp, I look down at 2 aces in the low jack, raise to $15. I get a call from the player in the cutoff, and also the player who decided to limp in from under the gun. So it's just going to be the 3 of us seeing a flop with $49 in the center. Flop comes out 6-6-4 rainbow. Not a bad flop for my hand. I'm either way ahead or behind. First player checks. I decided to check this for deception. Player behind me now bets for $45. This could very easily be a pocket pair, an overpair, usually medium size, so I'm thinking somewhere between 10s and 7s. The other player puts in a call. A little concerning that the limper called this decent sized bet. Turn card comes as a 10 of hearts. Doesn't really help at all. It does help a player if he had pocket 10s. First player checked, I checked, and now the player in the cutoff bets for $100. Pretty good sized bet, but my read on him is that he is doing this fairly light. The player in the under the gun position, he keeps on checking his cards. Let me just tell you, when someone checks his cards this much, it usually means that he has it. I think he has a 6, and I'm trying to decide whether I want to continue or not. I should probably just fold right here. But I was looking at his stack. He doesn't have that much left, and the other player in the cutoff has a little over, looked like $400 to me. He has it oddly stacked. So I figure, well, I can make a crying call here, and if the player in the cutoff bluffs all in, the other player have a short stack, I can win the side pot. At least that's what my thinking was at this time. River card comes is a 2 of hearts. It does complete a backdoor flush draw. First player checks, I check. It's on the cutoff. He decides that he's going to go all in. So he shoves all in. As you can see, his stacks are not uniform. I was thinking he had like over $400 in his stack. Dealer starts to count it out. It comes out that he did not have, he had $370. I thought he had at least $400. Of course, you can't really ask someone for a count in the middle of the hand without being a little suspicious. The other player, who I thought had about 120, 140 left in front of him, flicks in the call. I'm sure he has a 6 in his hand. There's no doubt in my own mind. I asked the dealer for a count, and he says, no, that person's all in for more. And I go, I understand. I just want to get a count on what the caller has left over. So she gives me a count, and it's 184. So basically, if I make this call, half of my money is going to go to the player with the 6, and I can win back the other half from the other player. And it became an issue of who I want to see with the money. If I give it to the player with the 6, there's a chance that he might do a hit and run. And the player who's all in with his pocket 8s at this point, I figured if I busted him, he might actually quit the game, and he's the type of player that I want to continue playing with. And if I triple up the other player, I'm pretty sure that it would be a hit and run situation. So I decided just to fold.
Even though you look like a super nit by folding on the turn, it's the correct play. And you know it's a correct play. So unless that guy's going to bluff super, super big and the other player has a very short stack, it's not worth it at all.
I'm in the low jack with queen 9 suited. Nobody open, so when it gets to me, I think that's good enough to put in a raise. I make it $15. End up getting 2 callers. So we're going to end up going 3 ways to this flop with $46 in the center. Flop comes out pretty good for my range. It comes king, jack, 7. It does have 1 club in it. So I got a gutter to a straight. But the king and jack hit my range pretty hard. First player checks. I'm going to put a little continuation bet for 15. I get a quick call from the player in the cutoff. The other player folds out. Turn card gives me equity. I now have a straight draw, flush draw, and who knows, maybe my queen's good. I'm going to make a half-size pot bet here for $35. And my opponent decides that he's just going to have to let this one go. Not sure if he had me beat or not, but I'll take it down. Here I'm in the big blind with queen 10 offsuit. Not a hand I recommend playing from there, but there was a $12 raise and a bunch of callers, so I call and we go 5 ways to a flop that comes jack, jack, 6 with 2 hearts. Doesn't really do much for me. I check it. It gets checked around to the player at the end of the table who puts in a bet for $20. I got a fairly decent read on him. He likes to do this with pocket pairs or strong 6. I'm definitely the person with the most likely to have a jack in their range, calling out of the big blind. I could also have a flush draw, but I probably wouldn't check raise a flush draw, but I would check raise all my jacks and, of course, occasional bluff here and there. So I make it $60. Everyone else folds out. It's back on him. He's saying that he has an overpair to the board. I think he means overpair to the 6. He said he ended up folding pocket 7s. There's a limp. A player raises to 15. Another player calls the 15, and now it's to me, and I got 2 queens, and I'm in the cutoff. I decided to put in a raise to $80. I am looking at this. I think it's the right size. It might want to go maybe $10 more, if that. But this is the kind of hand I want to get called on, and I think I'm way ahead when I do. It gets back to the original raiser, who was the player that had the 6 when I had my pocket aces. So I'm hoping that he calls so I can get a little revenge factor going on. And after a long tank, he does put in the call. If he had aces or kings, I think he would have raised. I think he would be calling here with ace king, ace queen, maybe ace jack, pocket jacks, pocket tens perhaps. The other player folds out, and we go to a flop that comes out ace, ace, jack. Just about as bad as you can imagine. Now that pocket jacks has me beat. He doesn't have kings. He probably has ace, king, ace, queen, ace, jack, somewhere in there. He checks it over to me. Nothing here to do but just check it back. Hopefully we can hit an ace and hit a jackpot, but instead we get the king of hearts. Yeah, I'm beat like 9 ways to Sunday here. There's no chance I have the best hand. I might be even drawn completely dead. He does make a bet for $200. I look at that pretty board and said goodbye to my pocket queens. He did end up showing that he had ace, queen of clubs. So I was drawing basically dead. This folded me on the button, and I got 2 nines. Definitely going to be putting in a raise. I make it $15. Small blind and big blind both make the call, so it's just the 3 of us. Headed off to a flop with 45 in. That comes 10-6-5 rainbow. Not a bad flop for my hand. First 2 players check. I decided I'm going to pot control this and just check it back. Someone could easily have a 10 in this situation. Turn card comes as an 8 of hearts. Small blind now leads out for $20. Big blind calls. I make a crying call just because I have a straight draw, not because I think my hand is great. River card comes as a 6. Small blind now checks it. Big blind now bets for $25. Nothing to do here but just fold. I must be beat somewhere. I don't know how. Probably a 10, maybe a 6. Maybe someone had a straight. Who knows? But I'm sure that a pair of 9s here is in last place. The other player puts in a quick call. One player shows a 10 and the other one shows pocket kings. So I lost the minimum, I think. Well, I got some good reads on my opponents, and I also got a pretty good image going for me right now. So I decided to open up my game a little and play some poker. You know what that means. It means it's time to make some moves when you can, and hopefully don't get caught. So this first hand, there was a bunch of limpers, and I decided to limp behind because I saw the person behind me start reaching for some chips. I figured he was going to put in a raise, in which he did. He makes it $20. Jack 8 suited is not a very strong hand, but I got a decent position over most of the field. So when the other players decide to put in a call, I'm definitely going to be putting in a call with them. And we're going to play a mediocre hand with a mediocre position and hopefully win better than a mediocre pot. We got $84 in the pot, and we see a beautiful flop that comes out ace jack 8 with 2 clubs. So I got second pair, some sort of flush draw, and a little bit of a backdoor straight draw. It's checked over to me. I decided I'm just going to check this over to the raiser, see what he does. If he puts in a small bet, I was considering a check raise. If he puts in a medium or half-size bet or bigger, I was just going to call. So he makes it $45. Well, that qualifies as a little over a half-size bet. So I decided I'm just going to flat here and see what happens on the turn. Turn card comes as a deuce of clubs, makes my hand. I think I should probably lead small here. I check it, he checks back. I think I lost a little value. River card comes as a queen of clubs. I'm only losing to the king of clubs at this point. I decided to put in like a little bet of $75. I'm thinking this is probably not a great idea. My best chance of making money here is to check it to him and see if he bluffs at it, because he doesn't have much at all. He doesn't even have an ace, and he ends up mucking the hand. The player raised to $12, and I'm in the big blind. I'm going to go ahead and defend with queen 9 suited along with a bunch of other players, and we go 6 ways to this flop with the $72 in the center, hoping to hit something pretty good, and instead we get a flop that comes jack 8 7 rainbow. There are no spades out there, so I have nothing backdoor going on. I check it. It gets checked over to the initial raiser, who bets out for $27. I played with him quite a bit, and I got a fairly decent read on him. This is very much like a top pair type of hand. If I think he had ace-jack, I think he would have raised pre-flop a little bit bigger. So I'm thinking he has something like King Jack, Queen Jack, maybe Jack 10. Well, anyway, I do have a gut shot to the nuts, which is always good, especially if he has a hand like Jack 10. I go ahead and put in the call for the 27, and so does the one player behind me. Looking for something really, really good or something really, really scary. And I get the really, really scary. I get the ace of clubs. Now, all those jacks that this person would bet would not be an ace jack, so I'm pretty sure I'm not up against an ace. I figured the other player has some sort of straight draw. So I'm going to go ahead and take a stab at this with basically air. I bet $120. First player folds rather quickly. Next player asks for a count. He starts looking back at his cards. He's saying, "What are you doing? You playing ace eight? You're trying to steal this from me? I got a jack. Is jack any good?" And anyway, I just sat there quietly until he threw his cards away, and then I took the pot down and counted some chips. So there was one limper from late position. I got king queen suited on the cutoff. Easy raise, put in it for $20. Comes over to the big blind, who makes it 55. Now, I haven't played a lot with this player, but what I've seen of him is that he's not afraid to put in some action, but he can take some pretty unusual lines occasionally. So I decided I'm just going to put in a call, see what the flop brings. And the flop comes out Queen 9-3 rainbow. I do have a backdoor flush draw and a backdoor straight draw. He bets out for $55. Seems like it's a pretty fair price, half pot size bet. I considered raising here, but I figure I want to keep all his bluffs in if he has bluffs. So I'm just going to put in the call for the 55 and see what comes on the turn. Well, of course, the turn is a horrible card. It's an ace, but at least it's an ace of clubs. So now I have the nut flush draw. He bets again rather quickly for 55. Now, of all the hands he's going to have, a lone ace is probably high on his list. So I think I'm probably behind at this point, but it's only cost me $55 to draw at it. And I got a pair and a flush draw. And it could be possible that he's betting something other than an ace. River card comes, 7 of clubs. We make the nuts, yay for us. He doesn't think too long before firing out for $100. Of course, we're going to be putting in a raise. He only has about 150 left. Yeah, it's pretty easy all in at this point. So I go ahead and announce that I am going all in, and he does not react very favorably to that. In fact, he turns over one of his cards, which happens to be an ace, and he starts tanking for a very long time. After some thought, he decided that he was going to save his last $150. So what does he have when he raises with an ace, makes top pair, and then folds for $150? It must be a pretty weak ace. That's all I got to say. Well, this ended up being the last hand of the day. And with this pot, I did end up booking a win, which has been very rare for me, especially when the cards are running like they have been running for me lately. Stole a lot of pots today, but I'm happy with the results. Thanks for watching, guys. I really do appreciate all your support. If you haven't liked and subscribed by now, please do so. It does help the channel grow. And of course, the bigger it grows, the more treats I give Zeus. And the more treats I give Zeus, the better lessons he gives me, and I play better. Then you enjoy it more. It's all good for all of us. Anyway, until next time, thanks for watching. We'll see you back here again soon, and good luck at the tables.